Hello, Sharif here. And thank you for joining me after the past few months with our Commonway live stream event that is going to have a new name, and hopefully you'll help with the naming of it. And new things that will be going on. Speaking of new things, we only took a couple of months off, but the window that I'm looking at that is and surrounding that window are all the buttons that I push to make the live stream happen. Looks very different, and so I'm very I won't say confused, but if I'm not as crisp with my button pushing as I was a couple of months ago, I hope that you will forgive me. You'll remember that the famous Hollywood directors have a few more people behind the camera than I do. And we're going to be talking about something I don't want to say different, but more pointed than what we've been talking about. I think it's time for us to translate a lot of the things that I've been mentioning as theory. We need to translate that into how do we act on that. And so what we'll be covering over the next couple of months is how do we act on our new way of thinking, a changed way of thinking. I want to read something to you from, and yes, I do have my book in hand, Birthing the Nation of Gaia. And I want to read to you actually from the foreword that my friend Dr. Katie Conlon provided. And I want to read the first sentence, and I think it's a very powerful sentence. What does it mean to be human in these times? Now, we have an idea of our humanity. We started getting that from, goodness, probably kindergarten or maybe even before that. And we've been building on that for a long time. But what does it really mean to be human? And I think that question is being asked of us in a very powerful way right now. Things are changing. We can feel the changes going on on our planet. That's a line, and it's somewhere else in the book. I talk about that. I think it's the first. Nope, it's not. Let me not look for it. But I say, the times are changing. We can feel it. If you look on social media, you can see that millions and millions of people are feeling this change in time. Many of them are taking the wrong attitude toward it. Many of them are taking the wrong energy toward it. How many YouTube videos have you seen? This is the proper way to do your hoarding. Make sure you get this stuff. Make sure you separate from those people over there. And all of those actions is a recipe for destruction. It's a recipe for you not making it. Because the times are changing, the thing that we need for us to make the change, those things are shifting, and we are the ones that are going to make the shift. we have to see this in a really clear way. And our challenge is through, there's something that's called the fog of war, that things get really confused. You can't see right from wrong when all the bombs are going off. But this might be, we might call this the fog of transformation, that while everything is changing, while everything is transforming, we have to find our way really, really clearly and really carefully. And when we do, we wind up in a much better place. We wind up feeling great, and we wind up saying, yes, we're the winners, etc. And the ones who don't do that, the ones who go under, are the ones who are trying to go into the new space with the old values. So our challenge is, how do we find that new space? I am. You'll notice in terms of changing format, we're not going into a meditation tonight, unless we go in later on tonight. That's purposeful for a number of different reasons. One of those reasons is that we're designing a meditation process that really takes us further into holonic consciousness. And I don't have all the details worked out yet. So we're talking about hours, but it's not ready right now today live. So our challenge is, how do we live a new reality? How do we live in actually a new format for how we present ourselves? How do we come into grips with a higher purpose? Let me share a couple of things with you, and then let's talk a little bit about how we see today. One of the things I want this new format to do, I want the new format to have a new name, and I want us to be living in that name. And I want all of us to contribute to how we decide on a name. All of the things that I am will be talking to you about will be in a couple of different themes. One of the themes is what's going on right now. Now, what's going on right now? You can look in your newspaper. You can look on online news, and you can see all these things that the media, mainstream and otherwise, is paying attention to. We're going to be looking right below that to the ideas and the values and the stories we tell ourselves around the stuff that's happening up here. And so our challenge is going to be, how do we change our stories so that we can change how we see the world? Okay. As the world is changing, we don't want to use that as an excuse to pull ourselves further apart from each other, to pull ourselves further apart as an excuse to buy more guns, excuse to hoard more food, excuse to separate ourselves from each other, separate ourselves from nature, separate ourselves from ourselves, separate myself from myself. How do we stop acting like a bunch of scared individuals and start acting like a powerful, purposeful, and loving community, a colony of people, a people who are all dedicated to seeing the world a particular way? So we are going to be taking the various flashpoints that we're seeing happening in our media. And right now, one of our biggest flashpoints is what's going on in Israel, Palestine. And you'll notice I say that as one word because guess what? It is. They need to stop pretending that it's separate. And we can, is there another way of looking at it? Is there another way of being with it? And is there another way of connecting the dots in such a way that all of us can live and thrive? So let me see what I've got to. I think I can do a few things here. Bear with me. And that's not the slide that I want. I am thinking that I'm not going to be able to do that. Okay. So Israel-Palestine has been thrust into the news with the very horrific attack by Hamas in the Israel part of Israel-Palestine. And the equally horrific response to the attack. One of the things that happens in most of scheduled, structured violence, the kind of violence that comes from airplanes and missiles and things like that, is that each side beats up the other side's civilians. Each side complains about those got people over there killed our innocent civilians. And then they go out and kill the other one's innocent civilians. And this game goes back and forth over and over. I analyzed this back when I was doing the work with Sarvodia in Sri Lanka, and analyzed it to, I called it the war story and the peace story. It takes a couple of hours to go through it, so we're not going to do that right now. We're going to focus in on one aspect of this story. Before I go into that aspect, though, I want to focus on the fact that the fighting in Israel-Palestine is very unique because it's not two nations at war. It's a nation fighting an organization. You know, Hamas is not a nation. It doesn't control any territory. Bombing the Gaza Strip is not bombing Hamas. And that will be a very, very important point when it comes to time to look at what can be done against an entity that has no territory, and all you've got on your side are bombs and weapons and things like that. It's going to be a very, very important point when the United States gets on the scene with its superior firepower and no place to aim it, because Hamas is not a nation, it's an organization. It won't stop them from killing people, though. So let's see what we've got here. A little ahead of the game. This is something that we, I guess I better back up again. So this is what I helped Sarvodia to develop when I was spending so much time over in Sri Lanka. One of the things that I did was to focus on, although Sarvodaya is an organization pledged to nonviolence and had been working to stop the war for the entire 25 years of the war kept getting worse and worse and worse. So my question, as an outsider, I come in and I say, what's not working here? Yeah, we know meditation works, so why isn't the meditation working? We know that the intention for peace works. So why isn't that working? Well, after we analyzed it, we saw a bunch of stuff. And I broke that into 5 elements. Shifting the psychosphere, shifting the envelope of thought that all of our actions exist in, changing the story. And by story, I mean the rationale behind the actions that you have. It's one thing to have a set of actions. It's something different to have the idea or the rationale behind the actions. Right now, I need to, because this is Israel-Palestine, I need to watch my words very carefully, because I don't want people flying off the handle in one direction or the other. Because people have been injured, and I mean emotionally injured, because people are angry. When you're angry, you want to lash out at something. This is a very normal, very unfortunate, but very normal behavior. What we have to do is rein that in, because that's the only way you change the story. I'll give you a very quick example of this, and then we're going to go back to my list here. This happened a while ago when there were a bunch of tents that were in my immediate vicinity, and had my windows broken on my car about a dozen times over the course of a year or two. One time, and each time it cost me money. I mean, the insurance doesn't cover it. I mean, that's part of my deductible. So, I'm out of pocket. One time, I was walking to my car to get in my car, and there's a guy sitting in my car who's not me. And I walk up to the car. I mean, I'm literally in shock. And the guy rolls down the window. I mean, he's eating his lunch behind the wheel of my car. And he says, "Oh, is this your car?" Now, at that moment, as you know, I've written about nonviolence in several books. I've pledged myself to nonviolence. I forgot all of that, and all of my Camden, New Jersey background and training came up. And my first thought was, I'm going to clean the sidewalk with this guy. I'm going to scrape him up and down the street. There's going to be very little left of him after I get finished. And there are 2 of me. One of me was trying to figure out how I'm going to pick him up out of my car and then beat the crap out of him so I don't get any blood in my car. And the other part was like, well, Sharif, you need to calm down. You need to take a breath. You need to turn your back so you don't see this. And the first me was saying, okay, you shut up. Beat him up, and then you can do all your peace stuff. And as I'm sitting here now, I did not beat him up. as I'm sitting here now, the fact that I even went there is kind of like, oh my goodness, I'm not proud of what I just told you. Okay. Um, but I recognize that as a very um, natural initial response to the feeling that you've been hurt. You want to hurt back. It doesn't work, never works. You don't even feel satisfied that long. The repercussions are almost always out of proportion to what the incident was. But it doesn't stop that from coming up. It was really, in some ways, it was even funny because one of my neighbors came up and saw the look on my face, and he says, Sharif, now remember, you write books on nonviolence. You're talking to me about nonviolence. Make sure you're practicing that now. So, and he helped talk me back from the ledge I was going to throw this guy off of. Okay, so there's a natural response to this notion of uh, I want to hurt back, and the things that Netanyahu and the other Israeli leaders have been saying are the kinds of things I was thinking when I saw my car violated and the guy eating lunch inside of it. So our challenge is, can we calm down enough for us to see a true way forward? Okay. Um, so number one, shift the psychospheres. Number two, change the story. Number three, empower the leadership of the people. Number four, ignore the leaders. Number five, be open to the unexpected. Now, I'm thinking that I'm going to do the whole 2 hours at some point in time. Stay tuned. I'll let you know when, where, and how I do that. Okay. So changing the war story to the peace story has 7 parts to it. I'm going to introduce you to 2 of those parts right now, and then you can, and the other ones will come when I do the full story. So war story number 1, you define a reasonable goal for your group and you use simple language. And I use 3 different groups. These are universal principles. These are principles in any conflict. I use 3 different conflicts to look at that. In the case of the Sri Lanka, it was the government versus the Tamil Tigers. In the Middle East, it's Israel versus Palestine, or here a subset of Palestine in terms of Hamas. In America, the government versus Al Qaeda or whoever it is we want to beat up on. All of the governments say the same thing. The war is to preserve the nation. We'll kill these small group of terrorists, and then everyone will become peaceful and happy. All of the insurgents, the Tamil Tigers, Hamas, Al Qaeda, all of them say the war is to protect our ethnic or our religious identity. We'll destroy the occupying army, and everyone will become peaceful and happy. The peace story on both sides is you set a goal that can be accepted by the people on all sides, not the military folks. Military folks want to fight. They want to fight. Okay. So how do you set a goal that the militaries on both sides the people on both sides can accept? So the common goal was to make war unthinkable and peace inevitable, that everyone can win by living in a secure and peaceful world. The question is, the world that you're living in, is it secure? Is it peaceful? the prayer that I say at the end of the intention and prayer, I should call it, that I say at the end of all of my sessions. May all people be well. May all people be secure. May all people be happy. If the leaders in Israel and Palestine had intended that for their own people and also for the other, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now, because there would be no conflict there. It's that we don't hold that toward each other. We don't want the other to win. Okay. And I'm going to go through one more of these scenarios. So, war story number 2, you define an unreasonable goal for the other. You use the language of the other's extremists. So, you ignore all of the people who want to be facilitated, who want to find a reasonable solution for whatever conflict you're going through. You just completely ignore them, and you go straight to their extremists. So all of the governments, the Sri Lankan government, the Israeli government, the U.S. government, all of them say the war is against a handful of fanatical terrorists who want to destroy us and destroy our way of life. Look at the front page of the newspapers right now. That is what they're saying. That is how you get the war story. The insurgents are telling themselves something different. The war is against a brutal occupying army that wants to destroy us and destroy our way of life. The two sides of the war story support each other. If either party leaves the war story will collapse completely. That is what Gandhi did. In the situation with India's nationalism, the British government was ready to go to war, and they had quite a war machine. Gandhi didn't buy it. It's like, no, I remember the line in the movie where one of the British generals said, "You just expect us to leave?" And he said, "Yeah, you'll leave. We want you to leave as friends, but we want you to leave." That becomes a whole new way, a whole different way of looking at things. Okay, so quickly, peace story number 2. You define all goals that are based on violence as unreasonable and unacceptable. This was a key element in us finding peace in Sri Lanka. The problem is not the insurgents. Hamas is not the problem. The problem is not the government. The problem is not the Israeli government. The problem is violence. It doesn't matter who started it. It doesn't matter who's continuing it. The use of violence creates the aggressor. My aggression is not better than your aggression. What we need to do is transcend that situation. And with the other 5 elements of the war story / peace story, you can do that. Okay, I said I was going to go 15 to 30 minutes, which is also part of the new format. I'm knocking on the door of 30 minutes right now. I do want to remind you, let's see if I got a reminder here, that we're going to be having next week the 2 workshops for new people who are not familiar with the Commonway concepts. On Tuesday, Introduction to Our Future. On Wednesday, for people who are the Commonway veterans, including the people who took the workshop on Tuesday, we're going to do a deep dive, the first steps toward the nation of Gaia, and that's on Wednesday. And I think I've got times and stuff like that here. Okay. Yes, for Tuesday and Wednesday, we're talking about starting 9 p.m. Eastern, that's 6 p.m. Pacific. We're going to go for 2 hours. The format of the 2 hours is going to be a 60-minute presentation on my part, 30 minutes of small group work, and this is going to be interspersed. You don't have to sit there for a 60-minute lecture. I'll be asking questions. We'll be doing small group discussions, etc. And then 30 minutes of looking at how we activate this. Um, what are the discussions and how do we take the next steps? All this is going to be on Zoom, and once you register, you'll get the Zoom links. Um, Prior registration is required. You're not going to be able, if you try to sign on 5 minutes ahead of time, registration window will be closed. Um, the workshop and recording for each day is going to be $30, which I think is amazingly reasonable in these days and times. Um, Registration period, the early registration period is over now. Um, if you want both workshops, it's not going to cost you $60. It will cost you $50. And you can go to the Commonway website, go under shop to go shopping for these two formats. And once you go to the shop section, you'll be able to see Tuesday, Wednesday, and then both. Okay, folks. If I had known how much frazzled things would be on this, our first return to our format, I would have practiced earlier. But thank you for attending, and thank you for your continued support for this process, for the process where we come to a world that actually works for all living beings. May all beings be well. May all beings be secure. May all beings be happy. Next session is this coming Tuesday. Oops, it's not this coming Tuesday, because this coming Tuesday is we'll be doing our workshop. So hopefully I'll see you this Tuesday because you're signed up for the workshop, and our next session will be on Thursday. Okay, thanks a lot, and I will talk to you at another point in time.